everyone, and welcome to a Cloud with Chris live stream. This is our monthly roundup, so welcome. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. I've done a little bit of changing in terms of my my setup here, so hopefully all is okay. Give us a shout in the chat if there's any issues. So, got a lot to cover today. There's been a lot of announcements this month, not least because of Microsoft Build. You may have heard a little bit that there was this big conference that happened. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and just jump straight into everything, really. And I'm just going to slightly boost the background music, just so we've got that there as well. So you know the deal. If you like what you hear, if you, like these monthly roundups, please do go ahead and please do share on with everyone else that you think might be interested, because it does help and it really does keep me going with it all. So let's go and jump straight in. We're going to go really quickly through the Azure blogs because there's just so much news on the Azure update side that we're going to skim past a bit of this. So here we go. New investments to help accelerate your move to Azure. Intelligent application protection from edge to cloud with Azure Web Application Firewall. Customize your secure VM session experience with native client support on Azure Bastion. Streamline Azure workloads with ExpressRoute BGP community support. Azure Health Data Services engineering product for partners. Announcing new voices and emotions to Azure Neural Text to Speech. Join us in the developer community to celebrate Azure Static Web Apps. They recently celebrated their 1-year anniversary. Congratulations to that team. Accelerating innovation in the diabetic foot markets with Azure Health Data Services. Manage Red Hat workloads seamlessly on Azure. Microsoft session highlights from SAP Sapphire 2022. Microsoft and AT&T demonstrate 5G powered video analytics. Announcing Azure DNS Private Resolver now in preview. I'm sure we'll come back to that later. And all of that news was before we even reached Microsoft Build, by the way. So this is how busy May has been. Really, really crazy. Introducing the Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform. Scale your cloud-native apps and accelerate app modernization with Azure, the best cloud for your apps. Codes, test, and ship your next app quickly and securely with Microsoft Developer Tools. And Meta selects Azure as strategic cloud provider to advance AI innovation and deepen PyTorch collaboration. So there was a lot of news this month, but as I mentioned, we are going to skip past that because there is a ton of stuff to go through in the Azure updates, and otherwise we will be here all day just talking about this. So of course a lot of these updates have come from a conference recently that you might have heard of, Microsoft Build. It was a lot of fun hosting Microsoft Build alongside April Edwards, the dream team. Couldn't imagine anyone better to be hosting alongside, and we both had a lot of fun with it. So it's going to be good just to kind of take in all of the announcements now, because when you're involved in such an event, I think for me at least, I was more thinking about making sure the event itself was a success in the UK, and keeping an eye on the announcements, of course, to make sure we have we can talk to the right things when we're live. But now I just want to think through a bit more, I guess, because I haven't really had a chance to go ahead and catch up on all of it. So we're going to do that together here. So there were some Azure Machine Learning announcements for April 2022, both public preview. Oh, and they do a recap of the March ones there as well. Cool. Azure Video Analyzer will be retired on the 30th of November this year, so if you are using that, good to be aware of that. Object replication on premium blob storage and rule limit increased. That's interesting to know. Static web app support for preview environments in Azure DevOps. So previously that was just available on GitHub, and that's now available in Azure DevOps. Love to see that. Event Grid enables user authorization to create partner topics. So partner destinations, partner topics gain a greater security stance by explicitly authorizing a partner to create partner topics. Okay, so it's almost an overlap with Lighthouse is kind of what I'm thinking there in terms of managing those Event Grid destinations. Enhancements to Azure Web App Firewall, Virtual Network NAT health checks available via Resource Health, control the minimum TLS version used with Azure Service Bus. Again, great to see that level of configuration coming in there. Update your IoT edge devices on Raspberry iOS Stretch. So if you are using Stretch, then go and update. Transition to using Bullseye to continue receiving patches. Azure VM Insights Guest Health Preview will be retired on the 30th November. Interesting. Transition to Azure Monitor log alerts for VM Guest Health by the 30th November. So there are a few retirement notices to be aware of there, it sounds like. Public preview Azure Virtual Machines DCS v3 in Australia, Japan, US and Asia. So good to see those. This is a really interesting one, this next one actually. Generally available Azure Arc enabled server support for private endpoints. So enhancing that security posture, being able to leverage Azure private endpoints to connect on-premises servers to Azure Arc privately. Really, really interesting actually to see that. Generally available, Azure IoT Edge supports Debian Bullseye on ARM32v7, Azure Compute Gallery support for trusted launch VMs, improved Azure DevOps support in static web apps. We talked about that a bit earlier, but you no longer have to go through a series of manual steps. So there's a lot more, not automation, but it's an easier process, let's say. You can now skip the default API build via Azure Pipelines as well. Generally available ITSM integration with secure webhook, and Azure Container Apps now support log streaming and Console Connect. I actually used that in a demo that I did a few weeks ago, in fact, to Azure Thames Valley, and we'll talk more about that a bit later. No least, this is not the end of us talking about Azure Container Apps either, because it went GA in a build as well. So lots and lots of great announcements, and we're not even at the build announcements yet. So crazy month. Generally available minor versions upgrade for Azure Database for MySQL Flexible Server. Azure SQL, generally available updates for early May 2022. Generally available OCR supports 164 languages in the Cognitive Services Computer Vision. So if you're using computer vision, there are now support for 164 languages in terms of optical character recognition. Great to see that. Next up, Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 1 to Gen 2 using Azure Portal, so that migration path is there. This is a big one actually. I'm going to click into this one. 16th of May there was an announcement on Azure DNS Private Resolver, so hybrid name resolution and conditional forwarding. So the scenario I like to think about there is if I have, well, I do have my local environment in my home office here. I have a Unified Dream Machine Pro. I can set up a VPN between Azure and between my environment here. But one of the challenges that I had back when I had an environment set up with Kubernetes is Kubernetes has a DNS that you need to go and connect to for the master API endpoint, so some kind of name you need to resolve to. I tried to get it set up using the private endpoints approach, and of course all worked apart from the fact that my local environment doesn't know what that endpoint is. Great to see now that the Azure DNS Private Resolver capability is there, which would help me out with that. So I need to go back and try that out once again, but really pleased to see that update there. Additional support for managed identity authentication in Azure Stream Analytics. That's pretty cool. Generally available, I should say. Industrial IoT connectivity partners integrate with Azure IoT Central. Public preview host process containers. So you can now package and distribute management operations and functionalities that require host access while retaining versioning and the deployment methods provided by containers. Host process containers, also referred to as privileged containers, extend the Windows container model to enable a wide range of Kubernetes cluster management scenarios. Host process containers run directly on the host and maintain behavior and access similar to that of a regular process. Got it, right. So within AKS, host process containers, anything that you'd need to go and give a privileged level of access that would almost run as if it was a local process on those host machines. That capability is now in public preview in AKS. So I guess something like that, of course. What's the saying? Great power, great responsibility. Be careful with that, because you don't want to be running things in a privileged way that you don't need to be. Next up, generally available open service mesh extension for Azure Arc. Very interesting to see that. So Azure Arc, big fan. Open service mesh, the idea that like we have with the CSI, the container storage interface, we've now got an interface for our service meshes as well. So whether you want to use Linkerd, whether you want to go and use whichever service mesh you want to go and use, it's effectively that abstraction layer, that interface there. So it's now available as an extension for Azure Arc, so really interesting to see. You can now store secrets and bring your own key encrypted etcd using key management systems. So again, really interesting to see that for AKS. It's a KMS plugin for Key Vault, is the recommended choice for using a third-party tool for key management. Things like KMS plugin simplifies key rotation, new data encryption key generated for each encryption. So it sounds like it's that envelope kind of encryption there, and key encryption, key rotation controlled by the user. Use a key in Key Vault for etcd encryption, bring your own keys, and provide encryption addresses for secrets stored in etcd. Great to see it. I know that was often a topic that was an interesting one when I talk about AKS with customers. Public preview, AKS private link service integration. You can now have AKS take care of creating the private link service association to the Kubernetes service identified by the front-end IP config of an internal Azure load balancer. So again, AKS seems to be doing a lot more there to just... Secure by default isn't quite what I want to say, but if there's certain paths that you want to go down, making it easier out of the box to do that, so that it's just really a simple and clean experience. A container storage interface extensible API for AKS, so you can now disable and enable any of the AKS supported CSI drivers using this API. Interesting. Some more granular control there by the sounds of it. Generally available, easily manage your Azure IoT Central dashboards using a catalog. Generally available, Azure backup support for trusted launch Azure VMs. Great to see. Generally available, DCS v3 and DCDS v3 series VMs. Those are the confidential compute ones. And now we're starting to get into those build announcements, by the way. Generally available, GraphQL pass-through support in Azure API management. So GraphQL APIs are considered to be more efficient, flexible, and powerful, and have benefits such as faster performance, longer API call limit threshold, and lesser time retrieving data. I think if anyone's seen my blog post, you will have seen GraphQL and how I use that with GitHub as well. So again, interesting there, Azure API management and GraphQL support. You can now easily create a GraphQL API to support modern client application development. So synthetic GraphQL, what is that? Change your existing APIs into GraphQL. Ah, okay, got it. So it's like the conversion, I suppose, from the SOAP to REST, etc., that already exists. So being able to easily transfer, convert, transform, that's the word I was looking for. Interesting, I hadn't spotted that update actually, and that's in public preview. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, cool, good. New app service migration capabilities, so facilitate discovery, assessment, and migration to app service and AKS. Cool. App service gRPC support. I've been hearing for a long time customers that I've been working with who wanted that kind of capability, so I did spot that one while I was looking through the announcements, so I was really happy to see that. App Service Landing Zone Accelerator, so making sure you have those right foundations in place to enable your app service apps to be deployed. That is all there now as an accelerator. And hello Steve, thank you for tuning in on YouTube there. Glad to hear you had a great day at the Microsoft UK Build event. We will certainly be talking about that a little bit later here as well, but really glad to hear you enjoy yourself there. Thanks for the feedback. Right, what else have we got? So you can see here we've still got another 3 pages of updates, and the majority of this is from Build. There's a ton of announcements. And this is why I love going through the Azure Updates page, because you get all those granular ones that may not have been amplified as much. So, generally available app service enhancements for WordPress on app service for Linux. WordPress users benefit from improved performance and security. Big one. I know I've seen a few customers and internal folk waiting on that capability actually, so really great to see that. Landing zone accelerator for Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes. I missed that one. Interesting. So if you are going to be using that Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes kind of environment, managing clusters wherever they may be, having that landing zone, that foundation so you can set yourself up for success. That's really great to see there. What else have we got here? We've got App Service Environment v3 migration features in additional regions, generally available dynamic IP allocation and enhanced subnet support in AKS. Again, some great features coming to AKS there, making it really powerful there. Custom node configuration on AKS. Configure operating system settings on the kubelet parameters, all the kubelet parameters I should say, to match the needs of your workloads. Again, getting that configuration at that lower level, whilst maintaining the fact that you've almost got this PaaS-like service. Really, really great to see the customizability, the configurability, the investment happening in AKS there. Really great to see. Draft 2, an open source project for developers building apps on Kubernetes. So create a Docker file for your application and necessary Kubernetes manifest needed. Again, another one I like. Draft, if you're not familiar with, there was a concept of draft up in Draft v1, and similar kind of concept here. Draft create, draft setup GH, so you can automate the GitHub OIDC setup process for your project as well. That is super cool. The fact that you can almost get this passwordless approach of deploying to your AKS clusters by using draft really quickly and easily. Really interesting there. That is one I'm keeping an eye on. CIS benchmark for Linux containers. You can now test the state of CIS compliance for the AKS Ubuntu worknodes. Great to see. Alias minor version support in AKS. ARM64 agent node support in AKS. So if you are needing to build any of those ARM workloads there, great news. There's now agent node support in AKS. Generally available AKS cluster extensions. You can now leverage a rich set of first-party solutions on AKS via an Azure Resource Manager driven experience. Now I believe, I'm just going to check in here. Yeah, AZ-K8s extension create, AZ-K8s extension update, AZ-K8s extension delete. So things like Dapper, for example, are now available as a cluster extension there. And I'm just going to zoom in ever so slightly just so we can read that on screen. Azure Machine Learning cluster extension, the GitOps Flux cluster extension. What else have we got here? Yeah, it'll be those three. So again, great to see those cluster extensions available and giving you these extra capabilities really simply and easily. Public preview, Azure Disk CSI driver v2 in AKS. Public preview Kder add-on we just talked about. No, we didn't, sorry. We talked about Dapper. My apologies. The Kder add-on is in public preview for AKS. Public preview web application routing add-on for AKS. This is interesting. I've seen quite a bit of chat around this one actually. So the ability to be able to have a managed ingress controller powered by Nginx that you can use without restrictions, integrates out of the box with open service mesh as well for intra-cluster communications. So think about having that easy approach of that native in-cluster ingress. That's effectively what this is. So, again, great to see. Draft extension for AKS, I think we talked about a moment ago. Windows Server 2022 host support in AKS, great to see. Subnet per node pool, that has been floating around in preview for quite some time, I think. That is now generally available, so you can now expand your AKS clusters across multiple subnets. So again, that some of those challenges that you had with IP planning, etc., start to become a bit easier, but maybe in a way you have to be a bit more thoughtful around the planning because of multiple subnets. Let me know your thoughts. Would love to hear what you all think about that. AI Ops powered intelligent view in application maps. I had missed that one as well. There's always some degree of noise, yeah. adds an intelligent view on the application map feature that uses patented AIOps machine learning feedback. So I'm assuming that integrates into App Insights. There we go, and there's this intelligent view here as well. Really interesting, actually, that. Container log v2 schema in Azure Monitor Container Insights. Public preview, Azure Monitor Application Insights, JavaScript Web Snippets Auto Injection for Node.js. That is a lot of words. Azure Monitor Application Insights Node.js customers can enable web monitoring with a simple configuration. Right, so we're talking about easier injection of App Insights for Node.js. That's what we're talking about there. General availability, Azure Stack HCI single node. Very interesting there, lowering the bar of entry for Azure Stack HCI. Right, we'll close that one. So we now got 2 more pages of Azure updates, I think. Yes, 2 more pages. I'm going to take a drink. Right. Public preview. Manage your log analytics tables in the Azure portal. Generally available. Azure Functions Kafka trigger support. That one's interesting. Generally available. Updated extension defaults for new Azure Functions projects. Durable function support for isolated .NET worker process. I'm really happy to see that one. That was something I did feel was missing from the isolated worker process, the durable functions capability. So really pleased to see that. Dynamic concurrency in Azure Functions simplifies configuring concurrency for function apps using Azure Service Bus storage blobs and storage queue triggers, so you can increase throughput, simplify concurrency configuration, dynamic adjustments to changing load patterns, instance health protection there as well. Public preview, Azure Functions.NET Framework supports the isolated worker model. So apps using Azure Functions isolated worker model for .NET can now target .NET Framework. Oh, interesting. Missed that one. Great. Durable function support for managed identity for Azure Storage. The more we can use managed identity, in my opinion, the better. The fewer secrets we have in our code, the better. Generally available, Azure Communication Services mobile UI libraries, so quite a bit of interest around that. This next one, really, really interesting one. Azure Communication Services email. So the ability to send email notifications and adds that email notification capability to your apps using Azure Communication Services email. So another string in the bow in terms of getting rid of some of those legacy dependencies like SMTP servers, POP3 servers, whatever, IMAP, etc. Now you can just use Azure Communication Services, use it as a service, send those emails out. Great to see. Azure Communication Services APIs in preview in the US government cloud. Azure Communication Services sample app builder and Microsoft Teams support is generally available. Generally available, Azure Container Apps. I'm so pleased. I'm such a fan of Azure Container Apps. I did a talk at Azure Thames Valley with my good friend and colleague Tyg Brennan a few weeks ago. It went down really well. And the power of Azure Container Apps, I think that is one to watch out for and really get up to speed on if you're not already doing so. Personally, I think there's a lot to look into there. Azure Cosmos DB Python SDK async IO support is now generally available. Async capabilities are always good, so glad to see it. Public preview, enhanced elasticity features for Azure Cosmos DB. So that includes increasing the serverless capacity, database traffic burst handling, partition throughput, redistribution, partition merge, and one of my favorites, and it sounds really... it sounds like it's something that shouldn't be as much of a favorite as it is, but hierarchical partition keys. Previously, you'd have to use... what was the term? Oh man, I can't think of the word here, but you'd effectively have to join 2 keys as one kind of pseudo partition key, effectively. But now you've got your hierarchical partition keys. Great to see. Azure Cosmos DB API from MongoDB, data plane RBAC. Great to see that, especially with popularity of MongoDB, etc. there as well. Generally available, Azure Database for MySQL, Flexible Server, ATV Core Business Critical. Azure Database for MySQL, Flexible Server, Business Critical Service tier. Azure Machine Learning, Managed Endpoints and Command Line Interface v2. Public preview, Azure Machine Learning updates. Public preview, new modern capabilities for Azure SQL Database. What are these new modern capabilities? Da-da-da. Input and output bindings and Azure Functions provides an easier connection to SQL Database using Python and JavaScript languages, along with bindings for C#. New JSON constructors and is JSON enhancements make validating JSON documents or converting SQL data to JSON easier. Ability to call an Azure function at any REST endpoint from Azure SQL Database is now just one line of code away. Whoa, that is really interesting. Not sure how I feel about that, but okay, that's still interesting. So there was that one. And then finally, the last page of Azure updates here. Azure Synapse Link for SQL is in public preview. Ledger in Azure SQL Database. So being able to check if your database has been tampered with or not is now available in Azure SQL DB. Generally available, Azure Cognitive Service for Language now includes custom named entity recognition and custom text classification. Public preview, Azure Cognitive Service updates. Now this one did get a lot of interest to build. This is the Azure Open AI service, now available in limited access preview. Approved customers will be able to access 25 different models from OpenAI, including the GPT-3 base series, so the Ada, the Babbage, the Curie, the DaVinci Codex series, which I believe is what is behind some of the GitHub code spaces aspects and some of those other really innovative pieces which are coming through. Azure OpenAI Service will help you enable new reasoning and comprehension capabilities for building cutting-edge applications for use cases such as writing assistance, code generation, and making sense of unstructured data. With features like fine-tuning and built-in responsible AI, you can also tailor the model to your specific needs and detect and mitigate harmful use. So I'm really interested in that one. I have dabbled and done my fair share in AI and data science, etc. So I'll need to see if I can think of a use case for that. Maybe it could be copywriting, for example, for some of my social posts on Cloud requests. I'm sure there'll be something I can come up with it. Azure Applied AI Service enhancements, Microsoft Purview data policy for SQL DevOps roles, Microsoft Purview data estate insights, in development, Dynatrace for Azure, a natively integrated SaaS solution that provides deep cloud observability, advanced AI ops, and continuous runtime application security capabilities on Azure. Interesting. I'd missed that. Public preview, Nginx for Azure. This one I hadn't missed because they were one of our featured partners at the Microsoft Build UK event. And Nginx are building a natively integrated software as a service solution for effectively their kind of ingress capabilities, advanced traffic management and monitoring. So you can see advanced features like JWT Auth, active health checks, built-in security integrations like Azure Key Vault, etc., etc. Purchase it through the marketplace if you are interested in that. And I guess it makes sense if you are, already a heavy user of Nginx. You want to abstract away from the management side. Software as a service is the way to go. Stream Analytics no-code editor. Oh, I missed that one as well. That's interesting. Because it was always that SQL-like language of management there, but it looks like there's some kind of no-code experience there now as well. Great to see. Generally available, increased size of Stream Analytics jobs and cluster, Stream Analytics query development improvements, IoT Hub IP address change notification. They'll be updating the underlying infrastructure and will go through an internal service update. The update will change the underlying DNS record for IoT Hub, resulting in a change in the IP address. Azure Backup Support, Backup and Write Accelerator enabled disks, Azure Digital Twins 3D Scene Studio, Autoscale Stream Analytics jobs, JavaScript and Python support in the Azure SQL bindings we talked about earlier. Generally available, Azure EBS v5 is now available in 13 additional regions. Automate scheduled emails of your saved cost views via API. And finally, enhanced IPv6 functionality for multi-value profiles in Azure Traffic Manager. A ton of announcements. There's quite a lot in there that actually I feel didn't come up in the book of news and didn't really get brought through in terms of the announcements either. So yeah, glad to have had a chance to go through that. Some really interesting updates actually. Now, over to the Azure DevOps blog. My good friend and, again, co-host that I could not ask for anyone better to share that stage with for Microsoft Build UK. April Edwards is, of course, one of our senior developer cloud advocates, and she is our DevOps practice lead as well. Lots of great posts here on what's going on in the Microsoft DevOps community, so certainly check those out. Certainly check out the DevOps Lab as well if you haven't spotted that already. And of course, there's a number of other updates related to Azure DevOps as well. So Azure DevOps Server 2020.1.2, 2020.0.2, and 2019.1.2 releases. May patches of what has been announced there. And then April's written a blog post on DevOps for Java and Azure. Ankit Kumar has written a post there about Azure Artifacts introducing new upstreaming capabilities. Let's take a quick look at that. Universal packages are a useful tool when managing and sharing large packages across different feeds. However, as useful as an engineer might find useful packages, universal packages, they are not able to share them with other ADO organizations. True. If an engineer wants to utilize a universal package created by someone they were collaborating with, the package has to live in the same organization as the feed they were trying to upstream to. Gotcha. So there's now capabilities to upstream those across different organizations, then, by the sounds of it. Cool. Deploy a Java application to Azure App Service using GitHub Actions from April there. Updates to Azure Pipeline's runtime variable settings. Deploy a Java application to Azure using continuous integration, and deploying Java applications to Azure using continuous delivery. Now let's jump over to GitHub and the GitHub blogs. There's a few interesting posts actually. One of them which caught my eye, and this is very similar to the type of talk that Sam Rowe gave to us at the Microsoft Build UK event. How GitHub are using projects to build projects. So talking about how they're thinking about shipping, the different types of issues they create, like a pitch, keeping it small, shipping to learn, how they use projects to do it, the capability of the drafts, open, closed, completed or closed as not planned, the kind of individual contributor approach and having that per, or having a tab for what your contributions are, versus the kind of broader, that broad level there, the team lead approach, those different personas, effectively. Read that blog post before, but this one as well around Dependabot and how they're using Dependabot internally. So Dependabot, I think, really is one of those unsung heroes of GitHub. Of course, was part of that Semel acquisition a few years ago, but now very much integrated into GitHub as a platform, talking about how they go and use that to measure, roll out and remediate the various pieces that they work on there as well. But of course, security starts very much from a foundation, and they talk about 2FA here as well, and the fact that all GitHub users who contribute code on github.com will require one or more forms of two-factor authentication by the end of 2023. So that is particularly interesting. And then math support in Markdown. I think that was one that Martin Woodward teased over on Twitter. I suspect that was the feature anyway. And yes, there are now capabilities there. So this all looks very similar to kind of the LaTeX style syntax, which I used back in the university days. Again, great to see that is now capable of being rendered in Markdown. So if you're a student, it's a great reason to go and use GitHub for your work. And there is improvements in the REST API documentation as well. So we can see there just some examples of the updates there as well. Wonderful. I always like to see doc updates because that's ultimately how we can be more efficient at using some of these services, isn't it? Now, over to GitHub changelog. GitHub Actions simplify using secrets with reusable workflows. That one did catch my eye. You can now use the secrets inherit keyword You had to pass each secret previously as a separate argument, but now you can use just this secrets inherit to pass that on, which is great there. Makes management a lot easier. Markdown previews automatically scroll to your edit location. GitHub Actions prevent GitHub Actions from creating and approving pull requests. Nice. Increased file size limit when retrieving the file contents via REST API. Command palette multi-step enhancement. New GitHub issues made a 5th update. What happened there? Direct editing and comments with the side panel. Yes, I have seen that pop up. Improvements to adding items and under filtered views and more emojis. Who doesn't love emojis? Block creation of branches that have matching names. Nice. View and edit products beta custom fields on GitHub Mobile. Nice. The more I can do in GitHub Mobile, I'm a fan of that. Global Campus now available for teachers. Codespace is now available for teachers. GitHub Actions enhance your actions with job summaries. I wrote a blog post. Did I write a blog post? I wrote a blog post. We'll check in a minute. If not, I've started writing a blog post. It's been a very long week. I can't remember where I am right now. But job summary is really cool in terms of being able to aggregate views across your different jobs. Think of like test summaries, being able to publish the results of that. That's something that I actually contributed something back to a GitHub action as well in terms of test summaries, etc. GitHub Actions beta of 1.22.04 for GitHub hosted runners is now available. Enhanced 2FA experience for NPM accounts is in public beta. Codespace's default image improvements, great to see. Dependabot keeps types dependencies in sync with updated packages, great. GitHub Enterprise Server 3.5 release candidate is available. Changelog summarized on user dashboards, default to PR titles for squashed merges, commit messages. Secret scanning, dry runs for enterprise level custom patterns. Nice. That is really nice, actually. That is going to be really powerful. DigitalOcean is now a GitHub secret scanning partner. View Dependabot alerts across the enterprise. And let's skip on. Compare differences between branches. Nice to see that. New help and getting started experience in the GitHub app for Microsoft Teams and Slack. So that kind of chat ops experience there. ISO/IEC 27001 and 2013 certification now available. Great to see. Member summary now on Enterprise People page. Nice. Dependabot alerts show all affected files for vulnerable function calls in Python. Nice. That's in beta. Expand code lines while you're viewing a pull request on GitHub Mobile. Again, the more we can do on the go in the mobile app, great to see. Consistently allow GitHub apps as exceptions to branch protection rules. Interesting. Creation dates for release assets. GitHub Mobile can now verify sign-in on unrecognized devices. I have been using that actually. Enterprise administrators can revoke pending member invitations. Nice. Option to prevent animated images from playing automatically. That was actually an accessibility feature. Not something I'd ever thought about, but yeah, again, really interesting. New GitHub issues May the 19th update. What happened there? Yep, issue closed reasons. Delete projects you no longer need. Previously, you could only archive them or close them off. Now you can actually delete them, so I'll be going and doing some cleanup. Side panel enabled for all project beta users, and then some bug fixes and improvements there as well. Let's see. Render mathematical expressions in Markdown. Talked about that. Updates to Markdown pastings on GitHub. Actions can now run in a Node.js 16 runtime. GitHub sponsors is now available in India. GitHub Actions rerun jobs with debug logging. I am so happy about this one, actually. There was the capability to rerun jobs, but now there's actually a capability to just check a box and say, yep, I want to enable debug logging. Because think about it, if a job has failed, it's probably failed for a reason and you don't quite know why, so you want to go and debug that. So really great workflow there, just a nice paper cut in my opinion that's been fixed. Secret scanning alert events now in the audit log, and you can now easily discover and navigate to multiple licenses in repositories there as well. Great to see that. Now, a couple of things that have gone on over the last month in the tech community that I've been involved with. Number one, if you are local in the Berkshire area, take a look at the .NET Thames Valley meetup. That is run by the IO team. I had the pleasure of hosting them in the Microsoft campus back on May the 4th, Star Wars Day, of course. And really great talk they had from Steve Sanderson. Unfortunately, I couldn't join that one and actually listen to the talk because I was virtually speaking at another meetup group at the same time. But from what I've heard from all the attendees, absolutely thoroughly loved the talk. So again, if you're local, if you're a .NET dev, definitely check it out because a great team there behind that. So you'll definitely want to go and check that out. And then, of course, I would be biased, but Azure Thames Valley, we were back. We had an in-person event on May the 19th, and it was so great to see everyone in person. I think we had 40 registrations, and I think we had 35 people turn up. That is unheard of in events, having that low of a dropout rate. So I was really, really pleased to see that. Had a great talk from Ryan Yates, first off, talking about some of those foundational concepts and fundamental pieces that really help enable that success from an operations and management perspective there. So thank you, Ryan, for making the journey down and coming to speak with the group. And then Tig Brennan and I did a talk on building serverless cloud-native apps with Azure Container Apps, and perfect timing given the fact that Container Apps just went generally available at Microsoft Build as well. We talked about the different capabilities like with Dapper, with Cada, the fact that you can use them for kind of API type setups. You can use it for more event-driven workloads as well, and really lends itself well from a microservices perspective. Great event. We had a quiz there as well. Big shout out and thank you to my good friend and colleague Matt Fatonka for the amazing Quizzer app that he has written. Worked flawlessly, and of course a big shout out as well for Ty for standing in as quizmaster whilst I had to go and take a call in the evening there as well. But we had some great prizes, we had tons of great swag, we had pizza, so I'm going to be working now with Josip, with Alicia and co, just to figure out what we're doing moving forward, what is our cadence, etc. But if you're local, you are more than welcome to join, so please do just sign up over on meetup.com and just keep an eye on Azure Thames Valley because there will be more to come. And with that, Cloud with Chris, what is going on? So I need to update the sites. Of course, things have been fairly busy over the last few weeks, actually. If I look back over May, I wrote a couple of blog posts. So one on Go pointers, so using the ampersand and the asterisk operators. We had a Tool Up Tuesday, had the session with again, another brilliant colleague and one of the managers in our team, Steph Locke, talking about dev velocity. One about interfaces in Go, a blog post. The blog post I wrote about using GitHub Actions to summarize those Go tests, and another Tool Up Tuesday. All that aside from the Azure Thames Valley talk, from Microsoft Build, this video today, and then Tool Up Tuesday on Tuesday as well, again with Matt Fatonka, where we will be deploying live to Azure Container Apps, because we are now at the stage we have containers, images, we can now go and deploy. So we're in a great rhythm there, and lots of great stuff coming. I am also going to tease something here that there will be some news coming out this week, some personal news. So just stay tuned for that. Very exciting, and all will be revealed then. Yes, something I've been sitting on for maybe a couple of weeks or so, but our build is out the way, not distracting anything from that. I'm looking forward to sharing with all of you, my friends, followers, etc., on what's to come with me as well. So let's take a look what else is going on. Of course, the final thing, or penultimate thing I should say here, is about lunch bites. So if you did tune in to Microsoft Build, our UK event, you will have seen me chatting with my excellent friend and colleague Steph Rogers. Always a pleasure to stream and go live with Steph. We are relaunching Lunch Bites. We went on a bit of a pause just while we were preparing for build, working on some of the logistics of Lunch Bites behind the scenes, and we are now back. And we're going to see some new faces appearing as well as hosts, etc. So again, stay tuned for that. All will be revealed over the next few sessions. But we've got a brilliant session coming up on Wednesday. So some brilliant colleagues, Lubna Thomas, Steph Locke, Steve Delay, all coming on as a bit of a panel discussion to talk about builds, what we particularly enjoyed, what we what we thought of the day, because we were all there in person as well at the Build UK event, and it was just a ton of fun and really getting to see that focus on developers and the developer community. So aka.ms/lunchbites, 12 p.m. noon British summertime on June the 1st. Come and join us. You will be very, very, very welcome. And finally, this hopefully goes without saying that I want to just push this one more time. You will have seen in Microsoft Build that April has done a fantastic job at continuing to raise funds for Girls Who Code. And that is in memory of our very good friend Abel Wang, who, as we talked about at the very end of Microsoft Build UK, is the reason April, myself and many others have been inspired to do what we do, getting involved in the community, doing these talks, doing these kind of sessions, and really helping grow and develop people and help people learn. Abel was a brilliant, brilliant person, and he was a big, big supporter of Girls Who Code. And again, I would just ask, if you can support the fundraiser, please do. Likewise, the Don't Accept the Defaults t-shirts have once again been opened up, and that you can go and check those out. So please do go and support generously if you can. Now with that I think is what I wanted to cover today. As again, I'll mention it just one more time. There will be some news coming out this week personally for me, so stay tuned for that. I will reveal more then. But until then, I hope this has been useful and you kind of kept up to date with all the things that have come out across Azure, with Microsoft Build, with the Azure DevOps blog, the GitHub blog, Cloud with Chris. There's going to be some great Cloud with Chris stuff coming up as well. I think I'm speaking at the South Coast Summit, the South Coast User Group in the next couple of weeks about doing my usual GitHub talk about how it's more than just a Git repository. I think I'm going to be at the Lead Dev conference later this month as well. So it's a really, really busy month. Lots to come, but really exciting times ahead. So you know the deal, folks. If you have enjoyed, if this has been useful, drop a like, drop a subscribe, please share on. And as always, I will see you in the next one. So thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend and see you soon. Bye for now.